Welcome everybody to the Glaziar Gambol podcast. And spoiler alert, just to start this whole thing, if you haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, or maybe even a little, maybe if you haven't seen Endgame, a couple others, just best to stay clear until you have seen at least Guardians, because we're going to be talking about stuff.
What movies do you have to see before seeing Guardians of the Galaxy 3? Endgame for sure.
Probably Guardians 1 and 2, and then
And Infinity War and Endgame.
Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah, those are probably the ones.
And then optional would be Thor, Love and Thunder, but I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah, not necessary. I agree.
I also don't think the holiday special is necessary.
Sure. Let's get down to
watching the Groot show on Disney Plus would help you with the credits, but not any credit scene, but art showing during the credits.
Yeah, I think the holiday special a little bit too, knowing that they are at nowhere now, like they're inhabiting nowhere, might be a little bit, but
exactly.
I mean,
yeah. So let's jump into it. Let's talk about what we thought about it. What were your expectations versus what happened?
My expectations going in, so I didn't really have anything big spoiled for me, which was good. But I did, and sorry if I spoil the name, Chuck Woody Awuji, the guy who plays High Evolutionary. I saw a lot of praise for him.
Yeah.
So I went into that expecting a lot from him. I thought he did a great job. I did think it was a little very jumbled. Like when I saw the movie, I thought it was a little jumbled, like back and forth too much a little bit. And then I didn't know what to expect from Adam Warlock, but I do think Adam Warlock as a character is really a really cool character, a really powerful character. But they did do a good job explaining what you saw with Adam Warlock and how he is portraying himself. Because he is young in his like lifespan.
Right. Yep.
And so he doesn't have all the processes like a normal adult would have.
Right.
Which explains a lot of how his character is acting. So I expect more from him in the future, and I hope he is a big piece going forward. So
right. Part of that is because Will Poulter is pretty awesome as well.
Right. And I did expect and
more of him.
I did expect more of him. I'm okay with how much he was or wasn't in it. Because it's not necessarily centered around Adam Warlock as the villain.
When I left, I thought it was a perfect amount of him.
Sure.
Just because I think they're going to be using him a lot in the future.
Right.
He's kind of a big name. I think because of that, they're not going to use him over the top. They wanted to make sure this was about like Rocket and then the rest of the Guardians.
I did think there was going to be some more loss in it.
Yeah. Yep.
How the like trailers were represented and how the posters and stuff were, and just what you expect from this movie. But I'm okay with how they ended it. I think it's very similar to how Endgame happened, with some of your bigger names kind of retired, or even like Thor, Love and Thunder, how they retired or whatever. So I'm okay with it. But I mean, going forward, there should be more loss, just in general, I hope, from just the MCU as a whole.
But that's the thing. Like, I expected there to be more death, especially like just
that's what I mean by loss.
Not just a bunch of civilians, like an entire planet.
Right.
Like we've mentioned it before. When a villain murders a bunch of civilians just out of whatever, it never really feels that bad.
Right.
It's like, okay, these are people that were supposed to be killed. Like, you made it that way.
Right.
Like Kang killing all the people in the quantum realm was like, we're not made to care about the quantum people. So it's like, okay, great, good. Kang doesn't feel any more scary right now.
Right.
I also expected. So they gave you fake outs the whole movie. They made you think that Star-Lord was dead at one point. They made you think that Rocket was dead. They made you think that basically that Mantis, Drax, Nebula, all at one point, they were all supposed to die at some point.
Right.
Gamora a little bit, but not as severe.
They already killed Gamora, you know what I mean? So
I know that's why I would have been fine if they did it double up like Walking Dead did with Glenn.
Yeah. Right.
Like, you just would have killed Gamora in this. I would have preferred Gamora dead than how they ended her story here. She's probably the only one I didn't like. Overall, I thought the movie was really good. I think the trilogy as a whole is really good. One of the best trilogies in Marvel, and probably one of the top trilogies for me in terms of a superhero movie.
Sure.
Maybe this is one of those situations where writers, production crew know better than the fans. Like the fans want happily ever after all the time, whether they admit it or not. They usually prefer happily ever after. So they
Sure.
want Gamora and Star-Lord back together. They want
Right.
Drax to be reunited with his daughter.
Right.
They want Rocket and Groot happy and like able to be flying around wherever they want.
Best friends, right? Yeah.
Right. They want Nebula. Nebula has the happiest story, I think, of them all. Like where
Sure.
she is at is exactly where you'd want her character to be.
Right.
Kraglin, same thing. So like some characters got it, but for the most part, fans didn't get exactly what they wanted for each character. Instead, Star-Lord's by himself on Earth at the end of the movie with his grandpa, who's still
Right.
alive, who's in his 90s. I think something has to do with the. We'll talk about the credit scene into more details probably later. We can even talk about it now. I don't care, but he's back on Earth with his grandpa, and I think there's something to do with the nephew. He's a 45-year-old and he's just gonna sit there and watch me mow the lawn because it was like
Right.
him complaining. I
Sure.
think that 45, that's gonna be something big, is that kid.
Sure.
I can't help but feel like that's gonna be somebody that is gonna be important in some way.
Right.
Otherwise, they would have revealed who it was there, because why hide it?
Right.
What's the point of hiding this person
Sure.
if they're not supposed to be a big part? But yeah, Star-Lord's back on Earth doing that. Gamora's with the Ravagers.
Right.
Nebula and Drax are leading nowhere. Drax is handling the children. Nebula is in charge of running the city.
Right.
Kraglin, Adam Warlock, Rocket, massive fucking Groot.
Yeah, he's huge. Kaiju Groot at one point. Yeah. Phyla and Cosmo the Space Dog.
And Cosmo. That's the new Guardians. That's what's happened with the whole team. And Mantis walked out with 3 beasts. We have no idea where she's going.
Yeah.
Just out on her own. That's all it really is.
Right.
And is that necessarily what fans want? No, but it's not a sad ending. It's not necessarily a happy ending. And all the characters have a potential to come back, and all characters have a potential where they never have to come back again, and that's fine.
Right. So 3 of the characters in the new Guardians are straight up just voice acting. Right. You got Vin Diesel, Bradley Cooper, and whoever voiced Cosmo the Space Dog, which I thought was great.
I saw the name today, but it's escaping me right now.
For sure. I thought Cosmo was good in the scenes she was in. Yeah, I thought Cosmo was great. But Kraglin, someone that you can like, and maybe this was James Gunn just leaving behind Kraglin. Like, I think Sean Gunn is great in whatever he does. He also does the mocap for Rocket.
Sure.
Too. Yep. So he's important to just the Guardians franchise as a whole. So like keeping him on also keeps him tied to, doing the mocap for Rocket and being Kraglin, who's now mastered the Yaka arrow. It took him a while, but he mastered the Yaka arrow. And the only one me and you talked about this was like Phyla is like, we don't know that much about Phyla.
Just like Love in Thor Love and Thunder,
right,
introduced in the last minute and a half.
Yeah, and so we don't know enough about her. So I'm curious to see what they do with her going forward. But if you just had everyone else that's in that group besides Phyla, I think it makes a ton of sense. And I like all those pieces going forward. But I want to see what they do with Phyla. Adam Warlock and Kraglin. So
Adam Warlock's the one I'm most excited for, because we talked about this movie about 6 months ago, and I went back and looked at it. We talked about how we thought this movie would end with Adam Warlock being the new leader of the Guardians.
Sure.
That's what we said would happen. We were kind of close. He's the part of it. He's not as intimidating and intense as we thought he originally once was.
Which they explain
it's because he was exposed out of his cocoon too early.
Right.
Taken out too early, so he never was able to fully develop, especially on his mental side, which is why he's childlike, stupid, which he now fills the Star-Lord role and the Drax role in one. And I think that's very, very powerful.
Right.
I think that was the goal, was you have an attractive lead, plus you also have your dumb comic relief.
Right. He's very strong too. Like, they haven't had someone that strong on the Guardians, you know what I mean? So
yeah, he's the strongest that they've ever had. 100%. Right. Groot's the only one who's close, but he defeated Groot himself in the movie.
Yeah. So
he defeated the entire Guardians as a whole. That's
Right.
what is
Yeah, he
insane.
gave everyone the business.
Yeah, at
Almost
this.
killed Rocket too. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
uh,
So he's so strong. It seems like they made his powers movement based. Like he has to be able to move in order to access them.
I'm sure he can do things his own, like do things without that, because he was just standing there and he disintegrated that guy. You know what I mean?
Right. It
It
was
wasn't
just
like
weird because
moving.
like at one
So
point he's strapped down on a table and his feet are exposed, and he doesn't
right
do what he did earlier in the movie. He just
when
lets his
Groot was
feet
when
sit.
Groot was like engulfing him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
no,
doesn't
I
do
know
what
what
he
you mean.
did at that point when he was on the table. He just sits there. And
Sure.
it's just I don't know. Maybe it was just inconsistency with him, but I like where his story ended up. I think we'll see what happens there. Rocket, he was the center of the movie. He
Right.
was the main character. I love the line saying he was the main character this whole time. Because
Right.
if you look back at the movies, Rocket is what holds the entire team, like
Right.
connects everyone.
Right.
So it's pretty cool when they made that connection for you throughout. It was good. It was well executed. As expected, James Gunn made a well directed, well produced, well written movie. Side note on James Gunn, it turns out that he has had a bigger hand in Marvel he has been had, by the way, is
Oh
what I
yeah,
just said.
he has been had. Yep, he
He
has
has
had.
been have had a bigger role in Marvel than we thought. That
Right.
he has apparently had a
Heard this.
consulting role on basically every major Marvel product over the last like 10
Yeah.
years
So
or
Feige
8 years even.
he said somewhere along the lines, he's like, yeah, Kevin Feige would just send me a script and have me overlook it and give me my
Yeah.
notes on it, and then he'd send it back, and then they'd and I think that's a great idea, especially when James Gunn kind of for a little bit controlled like the outer space portion of the Marvel universe. He
Hmm.
kind of he set how it looks and like the identities out there. And then like obviously Captain Marvel came in and changed that a little bit, but it's like they just gave different areas of space to that mix. So like him identifying all these areas like nowhere and where the Nova Corps is, because I'm escaping that planet, and just all these other places, and then them readdressing that in like Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame. They're using that area that James Gunn has portrayed himself. So it's like a big collective process, and the fact that James Gunn was overseeing some of the um like land earth scripts, I
Hmm.
guess, if you want to say, is like huge in just the continuity base. So he's got that knowledge going over to DC. Um, and he's gonna flourish over there. I'm very
Yeah.
excited to see what
Yep.
they can do.
This
So
was just more proof that he understands how to make good movies. I will say there were multiple moments in the movie that I kind of was like, come on. Like
sure.
when Gamora doesn't understand that the priestess or whatever, what I can't think of her name,
Aisha.
Aisha.
Yeah.
Um, when Aisha is on the other line of the comms and she sounds just like this huge monster dude
Yeah.
and
The
she just
Ravager
doesn't
dude.
question
Yeah.
it at all, and she's in like speaking
Meet
all
me at these
very
coordinates.
proper.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought
I
that
got
was one.
emotional. I got emotional like pretty a lot during this. Like there were some times where I was like choked up and I was like, oh man, like this is tough. But I held it together.
Yeah, I
Held it
just
together.
definitely when he's screaming over Rocket, which when I
Yeah.
watched that moment in the trailer, I was like, oh god,
Oh, I
like the
know.
guy.
Yeah, yeah. No, Pratt did a really good job in that moment too.
Uh,
So
so some actors say like you want good spit shots.
there's a lot
He had a
in
lot of
this.
spit shots
Just
in
in
this.
general, there was a lot.
There was a lot of
Like
spit
even High
shots.
Evolutionary had some.
Yeah. There was a lot of spit shots. So if they wanted to show emotion through spit shots, they did that this
They
movie.
got them, yeah.
There was a
There's a
good
lot. I
amount.
noticed that a lot through like everyone. Everyone was spitting. I was like, all right, let it fly, man. Let it fly.
Every time somebody got like slightly more intense or angry, like when
Yeah,
Nebula
like
yells in the prison, when Chris
yeah.
Pratt's screaming at with Rocket there,
With
High
the High
Evolutionary when he wants
Evolutionary.
P913,
Yeah.
whatever. Oh
Yeah.
my yeah, and all of
Yeah.
them just spewing.
88
Oh,
9 89 P13. Yeah.
yeah, there was there's so many spit shots this movie, but
Yeah.
if you like those, this is a good movie for you. I thought what did you think of the prosthetics? This movie set a new record for the most prosthetics. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 set for most prosthetics in a single movie, surpassing Jim Carrey's How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Oh,
What
you
did
just mean
you?
like all the like facial
Yeah,
prosthetics and
like
stuff
the
like that for all the
animals, like the
animals?
Animal Planet. Those are
Right,
all like
right.
prosthetics, high evolutionaries
Counter
prosthetics.
Earth,
Yeah,
Counter Earth.
and then all of like Nathan Fillion, that planet, that live,
Yeah,
a live
yeah.
organism.
Nathan Fillion. Nathan Fillion's a good friend of or
Those
James
were
Gunn too.
all
So
those were all prosthetic
um,
suits.
there
So
was a
what did you think?
great time. I mean, I didn't mind it. I think the biological planet was a little weird,
Yep.
but I also thought it was done well. Like everything was like they overdid the biological part to it, but it made sense
Yep.
in like the grand scheme of things. Like everything's biological, so they're like sticking their hand in goo to control things, and like
Do you remember
everything's like
Santa Claus? I think it's Santa Claus 3 or 2. Santa Claus 2 with the Easter Bunny and Mother Nature.
I remember it, but I don't remember what happened in it. But I remember
So
seeing
there
that.
were
Yeah,
some of the animals on Counter Earth that, like the animal people, that looked awesome. I thought, I was like, wow, that looks like believable and perfect.
for
Proportions look
sure.
right. And then some looked like it was like a Santa Claus 2 level production where it looks like they're in a suit, like a mascot suit.
Yeah,
I thought something, and then like the Fillion Planet, the costumes were so weird
yeah. It's like they're
that
in this. Like they're too bulkier for them.
they were like the marshmallow puff people. They were like
Yeah,
marshmallow puff people, instead of looking like organic and skin like, which I think is what they were
yeah. I
going
also had
for.
a really weird issue with
It
that
was
too
distracting.
when they were like you have to sneak in past these like executioner sentries. And then they just like Drax and Mantis in the room with no weaponry whatsoever are just like, we're gonna fight and beat these people up. And I was like, don't they like like these are like murderous assassins that are protecting this place, and they're just like
That they
this.
never mention again. And
Yeah,
they
it's
even
like
say like arm the sentries or whatever. They even mention
yeah.
them, but we don't seem to see them.
And they just decide like at the very end is when Nathan Fillion decides to start shooting when like no one else has decided to shoot. You have like
Well,
six guards, and all that's guarding this giant planet thing.
the
But
Guardians had to get their badass fight scene
I
though,
know, I
which
know.
they
There
had
was some
multiple in this
sick.
movie.
There were some sick fight scenes. Like the whole
Um,
little hallway area was pretty sick too.
yeah, that one reminded me, as that was happening, it reminded me of the Kingsman church scene. If you've ever seen that movie, there's an entire like multiple minute long single shot
Like a one
fight
shot.
scene.
Yeah.
And that's how this one felt, where it just felt like, I know it probably wasn't single shot, but
Right.
it
I mean,
felt like it was just this one long continuous single shot fight scene that never ended.
yeah.
It was still, the Kingsman one was still better in my opinion, just because I think it's hard to beat that. But it felt like really well executed. I didn't think there was, a lot of time fight scenes can get cheesy because it's like, wow, that was so nice of that guy to pause and wait for you to grab your sword again,
Right.
like those sorts of things. But I thought they did a good job of keeping that out.
100%.
However, that first organic life form, that planet, that
It was
fight
like
scene,
odd. It was.
it
I mean,
was
like
it was a clunky fight scene, clunky visuals. That is like the weirdest part of the whole movie for me.
the one thing I loved about that fight scene is everyone had their part. You know what I mean? Like Star-Lord had his little, and him doing a bunch of badass throwing the little suction grenade, electricity grenade things, and then eventually they like sucked them all together and started electrocuting. He had his own blaster scenes, and it went to like Nebula. Drax took out his knives, did his stuff.
And you're talking about the hallway one,
the hallway one, right? Where you got the Rocket and Groot going like he's him whipping it around.
that's
like
what
that.
I needed to see.
Yeah, yeah. And so like everyone got their part, even
Groot
Gamora at
going
the
in
end.
someone's mouth.
Yeah, yeah. Gamora got her blade out. You saw her slicing people up. Nebula broke her neck and was still fighting. Like,
Yeah.
so I mean, it was really cool. It was, Craigley got his scene with the Yaka arrow. I thought everyone did really good. Even Adam Warlock right off the bat, just destroying everyone. Like,
yeah, and people are talking about Adam Warlock's introduction, and some people are saying it's probably one of the best introductions to a character. I
sure,
thought that was a bit overhyped. I thought the
sure,
introduction, like the song is good. It kind of doesn't fit his facial expression when he's flying in and we don't know who he is at this point.
right,
The song doesn't really fit it there to me. When he came in and just beat the shit out of everyone,
right.
that overall. Now that was a good introduction, but I think people are talking about like the song and him flying in from space as the
Sure.
introduction. Personally, I thought that was it felt really straight. Like that was the one time the music felt off, as
Sure.
opposed to the rest of the movie to me, where I thought it was really well. The soundtrack is great as always for Guardians.
Sure.
That was the one time it felt off. Once
Sure.
the combat started, it felt good.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm very curious to see what they go with Adam Warlock in the future. Cause like if you guys don't know like the original comics, instead of Tony Stark's doing the snap to save everyone, it's Adam Warlock that does the snap to save everyone. So he is as strong enough. He is strong enough to where the Infinity Stones don't affect him. So you could even say he could probably be on the same level. He could put up a good fight versus Thanos, too, because the stones did, do some damage to Thanos. But
Right.
yeah, he was specifically crafted for this, like for the exact moment to be perfect. So
Right. He's supposed to be the perfect assassin. He's the warlock.
right. So and I think he is like perfect from like a physicality standpoint and like power standpoint, but it is his mental has to get there.
Yeah.
And so we'll see that in the future. And James Gunn did say like the Guardians definitely can return. He's just I'm curious. It won't be me essentially.
Right. It
I'm
was
curious to
we
see.
know Star-Lord will, because of the second end credit scene, and the legendary Star-Lord will return.
Right.
So we know Star-Lord will be back. They made it seem like Gamora wouldn't. Zoe
Yeah.
Saldana has said that she's done playing the character
Right.
overall. She said if they bring Gamora back, she'll have to be recast.
Sure.
So even if we do see Gamora back, it won't be her, which means we probably won't see Gamora back.
Right. Sure.
Nebula and Drax completely open to come back, I think.
Yeah. I don't think
Mantis, they
Drax. I don't
left
think.
wide open.
Yeah, I don't think Drax wants to come back and be a part of a big thing
Right.
anymore. I think he wants to explore his other opportunities, which is fine. But with them doing the "you'd be a great dad" line, it makes me believe that he knows that Moondragon is out there somewhere, and you'll probably have to have that interaction in the future.
Either that, or they were saying that as a replacement. Like, he's never going to have Moondragon. This is his child. These are his
Right,
children.
sure, yeah. So that they could do that too. But yeah. So I mean, I know Drax has kind of been outspoken, or Dave Bautista has been outspoken and not wanting to come back.
Right.
But
He didn't want to come
maybe
back once James Gunn left, I believe.
right. And so maybe something changed where it's like, hey, would you be interested in coming back for a little bit just to have an interaction with like your character of Drax's daughter? And I know some people, some actors and actresses, they really want to do well by the character. Like John Bernthal is one of them. We talked about him a week or two ago, where like he's like, I will come back and do the character as long as the story is compelling and it makes sense and stuff. So maybe that's like Dave Bautista too with Drax. So I don't want to see the end of Drax, but at the same time, like I want that storyline to kind of get wrapped up
See,
before
that's
moving
the
on.
thing, is like a
So
lot of these characters, they ended it with, you could totally
right,
end it here, or you could bring them back. I think Nebula, since she's leading nowhere, her and Drax are leading nowhere. Anytime you have to call the Guardians of the Galaxy, they would have to be
the
contacted.
first one, right? Yeah.
So you would think they'd have to come back in some form.
Right. And
Groot has a better developed vocabulary than we once thought.
yeah.
I
Groot,
love you
this
guys.
Groot, this you could definitely hear Vin Diesel in that
Oh
too.
yeah.
100% when he says that. But yeah,
That's
no,
the first time he sounds like just
I'm okay.
100%.
I mean, I'm okay with it because like he can speak Groot or whatever. Like Groot is a language, and then like you telling me that he is not like he's a crazy powerful being in himself. Groot is.
Yeah.
So like you're telling me he can't learn another
Well,
language.
isn't he like technically like a god
Yeah,
in the
he's up
comics?
there. He's wielded Mjolnir before. So like in the comics, he held up Stormbreaker, like he is
Yeah.
Stormbreaker. So like he held up Stormbreaker when he was like a teenager.
Yeah.
So
Groot, and if you go based on comics, I'm pretty sure they consider him a god.
yeah, he's like isn't he like part of the world tree or something like that, or
Yeah.
something like that? So yeah, Groot's very
And
powerful
now
too.
he's got this like massive Groot has like a massive spike
Huge.
crown. Like
Yeah.
it's like a helmet almost of sorts.
Yeah.
It's like we saw earlier in the film, he goes like, they said go kaiju, and he goes like massive. but he was just regular as he normally is, and he was like 15 feet
Oh yeah,
tall, 12 feet tall, or whatever.
he's real big.
Like he's huge now. Like he was like
Yeah,
running on all fours level big.
and he's yoked too.
Yeah, and
Like he's
massive. And
right,
he's got them cheeks now.
right,
And he just like in the end scene, he looked
like a boulder.
not how you would imagine Groot to be, especially like when you think like, oh, especially when we saw him from the first Guardians of the Galaxy, and he's like this slender, almost like seeming to be super wise as opposed to like super dumb
Right,
or anything like that.
right.
Yeah, he seems
His
so
father, you
different
mean?
now.
Like
Yeah, his
his
father.
right. So yeah.
He
I
seems
and there
so
was a
different.
lot of there's a lot of theories about that. And one was in he was surrounded by this group right now was surrounded by celestial energy in Star-Lord and Mantis,
Yeah.
like because they're half celestial. So like he was surrounded by the celestial energy and he absorbed that, and so that's why he's so much bigger than like the old Groot was.
So do you
Because
think
the
he's
old
now
Groot,
absorbing Adam Warlock?
I don't know, maybe Adam Warlock. I don't know what
Phyla?
the hell Phyla is. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I don't
Maybe
know. That's
Rocket and Nebula are
they are on Nowhere too, and Nowhere's a giant celestial head. So
maybe they're working on some like if they find some sort of bio upgrades for him.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. We'll see going forward, but I don't think Groot's gonna max out any bigger than that.
No.
He's just gonna be this big
But that's the
ape.
thing is like this form of him could also go kaiju,
Right,
and he's not going to be as lanky as he was in the last kaiju form.
right, yeah,
He's going to still be thicker, so he can in theory get even bigger.
right,
He's just
right.
yeah, he seems like he's going to be pretty brutal. Like they have this form of the Guardian seems way more powerful.
Oh yeah, especially Craiglin with the Yaka arrow now. He's got that down. Like
Yeah. Like they have that entire army and they all agree he could handle the whole thing himself.
right,
He can handle the
right,
whole army of these
yeah,
creatures himself just because he has the Yak arrow, and they all
right,
are like, "Yeah, we know, but it'll be faster if we do it together."
yeah, exactly. So yeah,
Oh God, it's yeah, they're really strong. So we don't need to see them again. Part of that is we don't need to see them,
right,
but I think the way they set it up is we're gonna see them as this rendition of the Guardians,
sure,
and they finished Rocket's story, so now they can genuinely kill him, which is or like send him off and never see him again.
right, right.
Uh,
And him and Groot could go and like retire, whatever. You could have Adam Warlock lead.
yeah.
You know, you could. I mean, like you could still do something. You can introduce Moondragon too, and now
Mhm.
Moondragon's a part of it. So there was one other thing I wanted to mention. When High Evolutionary was talking about Counter Earth, he was like, "I visited Earth, blah blah blah." There's theories that like because the High Evolutionary visited Earth, he messed with some of the biological structure of the people, and that is what put the X gene or the mutant gene. Like he put the mutant gene in people while he was at
If you're
Earth.
looking for an explanation of the mutant gene, like if you're trying to find an origin story of it, that would be, I think that's an easy, believable way out.
Sure.
So if
I mean,
Marvel
how do you
wanted
just
to.
explain like some people just are just built diff? Like, is that just how
Well, and
they're
that's the thing
going
is like
with? Like,
the Fox X-Men, theirs was just like they've evolved. Like the X
right,
gene showed up because they have evolved as a species. They're
sure,
better than mankind.
right. Which would go with what the high evolutionary kind of sees. He's trying to build like the
Yeah.
perfect civilization. So,
So you could go the
I mean,
evolution route, but
maybe,
you could too. I think that totally makes sense.
sure.
Let's do the thing. Out of 10 or out of
Oh,
100.
okay.
What would
Out of
you
10.
rank
Let's
it?
do out of 10. Shang-Chi we gave an 8.5. I know that. Spider-Man No Way Home we gave like 9.5. Doctor Strange we gave like 7.
I think
Um,
you have No Way Home and Shang-Chi swapped.
do
Pretty sure
you?
Shang-Chi we
I'm
gave a
pretty
9 or
sure.
9.5. I
Okay,
think Shang-Chi is our highest
we
rated
were
movie
different
we've
on
done.
No Way Home. I think we gave that one. I gave that one a 9, and you gave it like an 8.5
Yeah.
or something. But
Something like that.
okay, so those are like the S tier. I
Our
would put it
lowest
up.
we gave so far are Black Widow and
Oh yeah, Black
What
Widow
If.
was. I would put it above. It's right there with Wakanda Forever with me. I
We
think.
gave Wakanda Forever a really good.
Okay, so I think it's right there with Wakanda Forever. I love the villain. I think I like Namor more. But I think you got more action with Namor, and I think that's probably why I liked him more. Because like he just and one reason I liked it is people died. Like
Right.
people you cared about died
Right.
with Namor.
Exactly. He killed
So
somebody meaningful, not
he
just
killed Queen Ramonda. So
and
like
the other animals, like the otter, that's not
Lila,
Lila.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
not a
because
meaningful murder.
you just built up Lila in this movie in post
As a
like past scenes,
flashback.
flashbacks. Yeah, thank you. So like I don't
Yeah.
know.
So he didn't kill anybody worth.
But Namor like he killed Queen Ramonda right after Shuri lost
Right.
T'Challa. So like goodness,
Actual
man, like
meaningful kills.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he would
It's
no remorse for it either. He's just like, you're the queen now.
Mhm.
Like I'll be
I'll
back.
give
You're
you
the
a
queen
week to
now.
come to figure this
Right.
out. Do your burials. We'll bury ours.
Right.
So I think that's true.
I put it right above. I put it right below Wakanda Forever. That's where I
Mhm.
put it.
I think that's totally fair. I would put it slightly above. I would put it above Multiverse of Madness, but below
100%.
Wakanda
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah.
So whatever, I think we gave Wakanda Forever like 8.5, 9, just
Sure.
like Shang-Chi. It was something like Spider-Man, Shang-Chi, and Wakanda Forever, I believe, are all around that 9 range
Sure.
that we've given. I think Multiverse of Madness we gave like a 7.
Yeah.
So that would mean putting this, it was like an 8, 7.5 to 8. So
Sure.
like on the low
I'd give
end.
it an 8. I'd give it an 8.
Yeah, I think if you want to be
Sure.
hyper picky and do the couple cheesy parts of the movie, if you want to pick those apart, having a villain that like they didn't explain his powers really that much either.
Yeah, he's just randomly like, and then
Yeah,
everyone
he's
just gets
randomly
tossed.
powerful and we don't have a explanation of it. We can just assume
Yeah.
he's manipulated himself. But
Sure.
like if you want to pick apart the villain, then if you said 7.5, I'd be like, you sound like you're being harsh.
Right.
If you say 8.5, I think you might be exaggerating. You might not be thinking a little too hard. I feel like
Right.
8 is like right there.
Sure. Sure.
So, 8
I'm
out
right
of
there with you.
10. I think when you get up to that high of a rating, it's one of those movies that if you don't like superhero movies, you can still enjoy it. And I think this is one of those movies where
Right.
Shang-Chi, same thing. Like you don't have to like superhero movies to like this movie.
Right.
And
see, the thing with Shang-Chi though is like you don't have to see any past Marvel products to see Shang-Chi, whereas like Guardians or Spider-Man No Way Home, you have to see some products prior to understand what's going
and
on.
that's always a negative for most people.
That's why Shang-Chi is like, yeah, go watch Shang-Chi. Like it's
if you haven't seen Shang-Chi, we'll just throw that in. If you haven't seen Shang-Chi, go see it. That's so far.
There'll be a link to that video, right?
Since Endgame, that's my favorite Marvel product. I'm just love Shang-Chi. But yeah, so that's what we thought. If you haven't seen Guardians yet, I'm sorry, but you just basically heard a lot of what happened.
You watched this entire thing without seeing it?
For those of you obviously that have seen it and listened to it, tell us what you think. We got a decent amount of views again, so we love you all. It's pretty awesome. And
tell your friends we're one away from the big 60.
Yeah, we're one away from 60. It was pretty cool. I remember just being like at 31 not too long ago.
I know. And it was like, man, when we get to 50, and then it's like, man, when we get to 60. So like, I mean,
I'm excited for 100 next.
100, yeah.
100's the next 60. Shot.
I'm excited for 69 and then 100.
Yeah, for sure.
So
100, then 420, then 500.
Yeah, exactly. And then 8,085 or 80,000.
1,337.
Yep. And then 80,085.
Yeah. Then 8,008,135.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think I did it. Maybe it's 800,008. 808,135.
Yeah.
People get it. We're saying boobies.
Let's go.
He's looking stupid. You all look great today. Thanks for watching again.
GG.
Don't wanna sleep in, cause I got something to prove. I gotta take what I hate and finally make a move. I think of you and all the shit you don't do. Well, I'ma make hella sure that I don't become you.